The fact of the matter is that if you don't pay attention and prepare for weeds, they're going to ruin your life. They're kind of like taxes in that sense, except taxes you can't eat, which most weeds you can eat. Taxes just really take food out of your mouth. All right, let's get into it. Well, I wanted to make a video on how I maintain a weed-free landscape, or as much as I can, a weed-free landscape. Recently, I have created a huge flower bed right around this tree right here. That one's new. If you're a veteran of the channel, spoiler, that's a thing that happened. That's what I've been doing this whole time. You guys have seen a video where I've kind of expanded this flower bed here. I'm really excited to see how that's going to look in the spring. If you're new here, I just basically took some salvia and moved it up. I separated and transplanted a bunch of Chalone daylily, moved around a bunch of black-eyed Susan and purple coneflower, and I just had a lot of fun in here. Added some lunar hardy hibiscus, trimmed my panicle hydrangeas back. It was just a long day of work. And then to finalize it, I put down a heavy layer of chip drop chips, so arborist chips. The last thing I want to do is do all that hard work and then have it undone in the spring by a bunch of Johnson grass and henbit in Bermuda and things like that. So one of the ways that I combat that is with a pre-emergent. A pre-emergent is, just like the word implies, before it emerges, pre-emergent, versus something like Roundup or some sort of foliar herbicide is a post-emergent, after it emerges. After emergence, pre-emergent. Okay, so the pre-emergent that I like to use, one of the safest pre-emergents on the market, is called Snapshot. Now, Snapshot is a professional grade pre-emergent. It has two products in it. One is Trifluralin and the other is Isoxaben, which you're familiar with Trifluralin most likely if you've ever used Preen before. Low active ingredient Preen is what you'll see in the big box stores like Walmart's and Home Depot and Lowe's. One of the reasons I like Snapshot is it's very versatile in the sense that it's going to control about 200 plus weeds, be safe on like 600 different plants. So the majority of us are going to be able to use this. I've been using it for 20 years with no ill effect, but you probably want to check the things that you grow against the safe 600 if you wanted to do that. A good way to do that would be to use ChatGPT. Is a pretty decent source. It misses some stuff periodically, but that's a good way to just kind of like go through the database, say, here's the plants that I have. Are they going to be safe to use with Snapshot? Or are they going to be safe to use with Preen? Check that out. That's a little extra tip for you. Snapshot is going to take care of seeds, right? So what it does is it prohibits the seed's ability to have roots and stems. Both active ingredients are going to do two different things, right? The Trifluralin is going to prevent roots and in a seedling, and then the Isoxaben is going to prevent a strong cellular wall. So that's the ways that they are going to control weeds. Okay, this is on the label, so this isn't my opinion. This is fact. We do not use this on areas where we're going to be consuming anything in that area. It is for ornamental beds only, like the one behind me. There is nothing in here that I'm eating. So don't use this on your eggplant. Don't use this on your strawberries. I had somebody tell me one time they use it on their strawberries, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. Just to err on the side of caution, don't use it on anything that you're eating, because studies have shown that some of that active ingredient can be in the fruit. So there is a risk that you're going to be eating some of this other stuff, where in an ornamental bed, I am not eating any of these things in here. On my vegetable beds, the vegetable beds, I don't have any at this house, but the vegetable beds I've had in the past, I don't use any kind of pre-emergent, and I don't use Roundup. I'm going to err on the side of caution. I still use Roundup, I just don't use it in areas where I'm going to be eating anything. Kind of a little tip. Also, follow the label rate. I like to use a hand spreader to put down the pre-emergent. It's very quick, it's very precise, it does a good job. You can always find a hand spreader at a Goodwill or a VFW, or not VFW, a DAV, Department of I don't know, DAV, you know, the DAV. There's always some hand spreaders floating around there for like $2.50. So always pick one of those up. If not, you end up paying full price. It's 15 bucks at Lowe's or Home Depot. Hand spreaders typically aren't too expensive, but that's what I use with Snapshot. Any big piles, I like to knock them down. Like, you know, like if I accidentally spill some, I trip over a perennial or something like that, and I throw I just usually just spread that around, and then I just go back to business as usual. We want to keep this stuff away from the rivers and streams because it does have adverse effect on aquatic life. Just be responsible, be good stewards. If you're going to use Snapshot, don't make the rest of us look bad and, you know, dump, you know, 10 pounds of it on your driveway. It's probably a little overkill. Don't do that because it does have an ill effect. And I also wanted to throw another cautionary little caveat in there is I don't like to use it in irrigation ditches where it's seasonably high water, an intermittent stream or something like that. I don't even use it in those areas. Even though they might be landscaped, somebody might have a dry creek bed or something like that on their property that they like to landscape and have flat rock around and things like that. I don't even use them in those areas because I don't know what the water shed looks like. Even when I've had homeowners tell me, oh, there's only water in that for about 2 months out of the year, I still don't put it down there. We just go mechanical at that point. Those are the little caveats, the little cautionary tales for Snapshot. I've also had some questions about if you can find it in the fruit, if you can find the active ingredient in the fruit, what about bird seed? So as you can see, I am in love with having birds and activity in my garden. I love praying mantis, I love ladybugs, I love all of that stuff. And I love finches and cardinals all winter long, munching on all this purple coneflower. And there's probably 50 different, or not 50, there's probably 50 different Echinacea plants and probably about 12 varieties of Echinacea in here, along with probably 100 black-eyed Susans, panicle hydrangeas, all sorts of fun stuff. I like the birds to have places to hide against predatory birds and things like that, so I do enjoy that. There has been peer-reviewed studies and long-term studies that have shown that there's no ill effect to wildlife when it comes to the Trifluralin getting into seeds. Now, not that I'm saying it doesn't, but the studies that I've looked at, there's such small trace amounts in each one of these seeds. I mean, if you got to think this flower produces, you know, 600, all these thousands of seeds in here, there's no ill effect. It's not translating to a damaging amount in birds. This isn't DDT. This isn't, you know, killing bald eagles. And not to mention the fact Trifluralin doesn't look like food, and if you water it in, there's nothing for them to eat anyway. So you just spread it out and water it in. What are you finding in stores? You're finding Preen in the stores, and usually it's a very small concentration. Preen is Trifluralin by itself. There's no Isoxaben in that. So you're not going to get the extensive coverage, right? So you're not going to get as many weeds that are going to be controlled by that. And it typically doesn't last very long. I think Preen is good for somebody that might have mobility issues that has converted to maybe a potted garden, you know, something that they can still enjoy the serenity that a garden offers, but it's up so they don't have to bend over constantly and pull weeds. They can just manage things from a bench. So if you do have mobility issues, Preen would be good because you could just kind of shake it out and you don't have to lift the big bag of Snapshot, because again, you're not going to find Snapshot at Lowe's, Walmart, Home Depot, places like that, or for the most part, but you could find Snapshot maybe at a farm supply place, perhaps local hardware store that's kind of got a little bit more of a horticulture footprint. You might find that stuff there. For the most part, professional landscape supply stores like SiteOne or places online like DoMyOwn.com, I think is where I bought my Agriform tabs from last, and so that seemed to work pretty good. You know, I ordered it and it came right to my door. I don't have any sponsors on this channel, so there's nobody that pays me to say good things. I just say good things when I feel like it's a good thing. So there you go. Have had some people send me free stuff, and I've only talked about them. I've only talked about 2 of them online, so it's kind of is what it is. So you don't got to worry about me selling you on Snapshot. It's something that I've been using for 20 years. I've also used Trifluralin, which is a name brand product. That's a little higher concentration than, say, the Preen that you buy at the stores, but I really like Snapshot the best. I think it handles my weed situation the best. Snapshot is a lot more expensive because it's in a larger container. So if you break down, you know, again with the mobility, you might want to go with the Preen just because it's in a smaller container, or then when your grandson or somebody like that comes over, they can move it to like a 5-gallon bucket for you, pour some in a 5-gallon bucket, you know, then you can just scoop it out with a cup or something like that into a hand spreader, and you can do that yourself. It does last a long time, and it's non-perishable. So all you do is really roll up the bag, put a safety clip on it, and then put it in a dry place, and it will last forever, basically. Well, I don't know about forever, but stop, I don't know forever. A long time. Snapshot, being a pre-emergent, works below that mulch layer. So think about it like this. If I'm putting Snapshot down, ideally I want to put Snapshot down, and then I want to put about 4 to 6 to 8 inches of arborist chips on top of that. I like arborist chips because they breathe and they maintain moisture and they feed the soil sooner because they break down quicker than, say, hardwood mulches or like a solid, like a cedar mulch or something to that effect. So I like mulching frequently because I get the best breakdown rate, right? I'm reintroducing some nitrogen. I'm also feeding my plants, so that increases the nitrogen to carbon ratio, and I do just really enjoy having arborist chips, but that's just, you know, and then 6 months later I'll come back, or 4 to 6 months later I'll come back and I'll put, with my hand spreader, I'll put more Snapshot down, more pre-emergent down, and that seems to work really, really well, but some stuff still sneaks through. So there's things like a bindweed and perennial grasses that will kind of pop up. Bermuda is one that I struggle with. And so for that, I'm using another precision tool. So I use a small amount of Roundup, and here's a little pro tip. If you put a Chick-fil-A cup on the end of your sprayer, it creates a nice shield and prevents drift. You can just literally just set that right on top of the weed and give it a little pop. I also don't carry a lot of pressure in my backpack sprayer, or any sprayer for that matter. We're just talking about drips and drops, right? Which prevents a lot of the drift also. You don't need a whole lot of pressure in that. I do have a video about precision spraying where I'm just really upset because there's some people on the internet who are talking about people spraying Roundup through their fence, and those are the people that give Roundup a bad name, right? It is a non-selective herbicide, so we have to be careful, we have to be precise, and I think being precise in everything you do is really important. So you're not going to hear me say that Snapshot is safer or better for the environment than getting on my hands and knees and crawling around for a couple hours once a week and pulling weeds. You're not going to hear me say that because that wouldn't be true, right? But I can have minimal amounts of environmental impact with the way that I use Roundup, the way that I use post-emergent herbicides, and the way I use pre-emergent herbicides. Okay, so you might not agree with me, the fact that I use Roundup or I use a 14 fertilizer or something like that. I'm not asking you to do that. This video is about the way that I do it, and maybe you can come up with something that will help you. If you can find something in this video that at least is something good, fantastic. So when you put Snapshot down, you're creating a barrier, right? So you create a barrier. Once you water it in, it just kind of settles, binds to organic matter, and then creates a barrier. Now, when that seed germinates, if you've ever watched a time lapse of a seed germinating, the root comes out first. It gets sizzled by the trifluralin, right? Now, if it's below that, right, if it's below the barrier and it springs to life, it gets hit with the Isoxaben. And it's going to prevent it from developing a cellular wall. So with all of that being done, now granted, this is only working on seedlings. This is not going to affect your plants. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't put a bunch of Trifluralin down and then do 3 days worth of transplanting. Okay, I wouldn't do that because then you're getting it into the soil where you're getting into the root zone of your plants. Don't do that. This is designed to sit above that O horizon, right? It's designed to sit above that seed bank So when that seed bank pops through, it gets sizzled. When the seeds try to grow into it, maybe it lands on the mulch, it gets sizzled. So very effective underneath the mulch, not as effective on top of the mulch, but 6 months later, you're gonna put it on top of the mulch and it's gonna handle any of those seeds that are floating in from the cosmos. Those are the seeds that are gonna be taken out when you put it above the mulch, right? Does that make sense? So we talked about Snapshot being a little bit more expensive. I think last time I bought it wholesale, it was like $115. I've seen it online for $125. You know, that's an okay price. And the reason I say that is because the amount of coverage that you're gonna get, the amount of square footage that you're gonna get from a bag of Snapshot is going to far exceed the square footage you're going to get by the same amount of Preen, right? So just Trifluralin by itself, you're gonna have to apply it more often because it's just not going to, it's not going to have that longevity like it does when at the concentration that it is in Snapshot. Snapshot is actually going to save you money. You just have to invest up front. A bag of Snapshot covers about 4,000 square feet, and it comes to about 6 cents per square foot if you wanted to boil it down like that. So for bidding purposes, super cheap when you think about it like that. You just have to buy it up front. Now for grassy weeds like crabgrass, I think even goosegrass, Bermuda, I like to use a product called Fusillade 2. That's more precision for me. I can get amongst other things because it is a selective herbicide versus a non-selective herbicide like Roundup. So Roundup kills anything with leaves. The Fusillade is going to target grassy weeds. So I can hit things in my flower beds as long as they're not a grass. And if there's any drift or spillover, I don't really have to worry about that, and that does a really good job for taking out Bermuda. You can also dumb down the concentration of the Fusillade when you mix it, and you can use it to get Bermuda out of fescue. So it'll kind of stunt the fescue a little bit, but it won't kill the fescue. It will just kind of knock it back a little bit. You might get some yellowing, but it will definitely take out the Bermuda. I have seen that. I actually put Fusillade on my entire front yard, and this year I reseeded and things are looking a lot better. Not that I care about grass or anything, but anyway, I did it just as an experiment and it worked out really good. So that is Fusillade 2, which is for Bermuda and grassy weeds and things like that. So really good in broadleafs, and I enjoy using Fusillade 2. I have just a cheap little sprayer, that little Chaplin sprayer, and I just go around and I spray it. There is a video called Science versus Bermuda. If you want to watch that video, that will explain it a little bit more. Okay, so if I had to nail it down to some specific things that keep my landscape relatively weed-free, it is a thick layer of wood chips, a thick layer of plants so the sunlight isn't reaching the mulch, and things being healthy. It's always a good thing when your plants are healthy and they're big and they're vigorously growing. They will control weeds for you. Thick layer of mulch, that will control weeds. If anything else, when you go to pull them, they're very easy to pull out because the soil is nice and loose, and usually if you have a thick layer of mulch, the weeds can't really gain a whole lot of purchase in there, so they're real easy to pull out. I typically just pull the weeds and just throw them in the lawn, and then when I mow, the next time I mow, I just chop them up and mulch them into the lawn, for better or for worse. But that's just extra nitrogen and carbon for my lawn. And then I use a pre-emergent, and then any stragglers I'll usually take care of with Fusillade, or I'll pull it by hand, or you know, if it's been a long day at work and I've got some Roundup mixed up from the day before. But typically I only have to mix up about a gallon, and I end up doing my yard and Mrs. Sharon's yard and my veteran neighbor's yard, and my other neighbor has a driveway that's just gravel, and I'll go through there and I'll just kind of spot spray some stuff for him until I use it up, because I usually don't like to have Roundup in my tank for longer than about 24 hours, and I'm not going to dump it, right? So I'm just going to kind of use it in areas. And if that means I walk down the sidewalk, or I go to Affinity Estates, which is a friend of mine's business, and I spot spray his parking lot or something like that. So I typically can use it all up. There's enough people that are busy and can't take care of the weeds in their driveway and stuff like that, I can usually take care of it. Another little tip, if you are going to do, and I am okay. I know some folks that use this as therapy. They like to spend about an hour a day in their garden just weeding and things like that, and it just kind of helps them kind of zen out, and I'm okay with that. So if you are the kind of person that doesn't want to use any kind of pre-emergent, you don't want to use post-emergent, I'm okay with that. I think some people misunderstand why I'm doing this, because I can promise you it's not for the money. It's really just for reasonable discourse that we can have in the comment section. I do like the comments a lot when they're productive, and I feel like somebody can learn from them. If they're just name calling and things like that, I don't really give it a whole lot of credence. You guys don't see, the veterans of the channel aren't going to see a whole lot of that because YouTube stops it, because usually they have cuss words in it and they're calling me names and things like that. That's really why I do this. I really like helping people, and I want to help you guys give you a couple options. So if you're not going to use a post-emergent or a pre-emergent, you don't like the idea of that, then that's okay. I know people that use this as a form of therapy, weeding their flower bed. They like to go out for an hour every day when they come home from work before the home stuff starts beating them up. None of these people have kids, but or their kids are out of the house. They're retired. That's a thing they do. They have a little job and they come home and they take care of their garden. It's therapeutic for them. I know a guy who is a professional landscaper, and he is subbed to the channel, but he doesn't watch very many of the videos. He goes out 30 minutes before he leaves for work and just takes care of his landscape. And then he spends the rest of the day taking care of everybody else's landscape, but that's his time, right? And I think that's noble to like zen out, and that's how he gets ready for the day. I think it's admirable that he does that. He is anti any kind of post or pre-emergent, right? So what I would suggest you do is find out where your threshold is for weeding or doing things out in the garden, and then set a timer. So just tell yourself, I'm going to work in my garden nonstop for 15 minutes. Tell Google, hey Google, set an alarm for 15 minutes from now. Always say please, because we don't really know where AI is going 25 years from now, so we want to be polite, right? Am I right? We don't want to give the robot overlords any reason to overload our toasters while we're making toast or anything like that. So when that alarm goes off, you're done weeding, set your alarm again. Hey Google, set an alarm for 15 minutes from now, and go do something else. Go do another project that's not garden related. And then when that alarm goes off, tell it, hey, set an alarm for 15 minutes from now, and go back to the garden. And what I found with my like non-functioning brain sometimes is, and my knees and my shoulders and things like that, is just a change of activity really helps the longevity of me doing that. And if my ADHD brain can somehow figure out a way to do that all day, which really technically just kind of boils down to half of the day. Sometimes I'll look at the weather and say, hey, I really need to get out there and start weeding, or I really need to do some work in the backyard because it's a nightmare. And I will do it for 30 minutes and then take 30 minutes off, and 30 minutes and take 30 minutes off, or 30 minutes on, 15 off, 30 minutes on, 15 off. And it really helps me get a lot done. And before you know it, you're done with your project. You will be astounded by how much you get done when you know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? So I know it seems overwhelming when you're dealing with all these weeds. Just take it in small little bites. You don't have to take it as we're getting this done this weekend and completely alienating your significant other. What you're going to do is you're going to take a little bite out of it, right? 30 minutes at a time. And I'll tell you what, if anybody's helping you, they're really going to appreciate that too. They like taking the little break, and you can read a magazine till the alarm goes off again, or you can sit in a lawn chair outside and just kind of soak stuff up and enjoy stuff for a little while. Then when the alarm goes off again, bam, you're back out there. Guys, I hope this works for you. My name is Stuart Moore. This is Landscape Rescue. Thank you very much for letting me into your home talk about plants.